Hello, hi. So I'm back with another review of one of the newest horror series that dropped on Hulu, and it dropped on October 2nd. So I have been binge watching it for the past few days, and I wanted to hop on and chat about it because I really liked it. And so just to kind of start it off, I'm talking about Monsterland. So Monsterland is it's an 8-series anthology that is based on a short story collection called North American Lake Monster Stories by Nathan Ballingrud. The point of it features monsters, but it also gives you kind of a look into the potential monstrous nature of the human psyche. And as someone who is a fan of the creepy people or the scary person, I was definitely interested in watching Monsterland. Now, if you have dropped here and you didn't notice that it said spoilers in the title, and you've gotten this far, I want to give you fair warning that this is going to have some light spoilers. I'm not going to do a full episode by episode recap, but I am going to touch on some of the themes, some of the characters, really some of the themes and some of the things that were covered in the different episodes. So if you have not watched Monsterland, here are some things to do next. So one, subscribe. If you found me and are not subscribed, then join the community over here on my YouTube channel and subscribe. Also, pause this, save the link somewhere so you can come back to it, so you can watch the rest of this, and then go watch Monsterland. It's 8 episodes. They go pretty fast, so it's definitely bingeable, but it's also definitely horror. So if you are either not a horror fan or kind of dipping your toe into horror, you should definitely check them out because it's good. And the horror is it's horror, but it's not like a deep dive into horror. So you can be a horror newbie and watch this. You might want to have some palate cleansers, rom-coms, comedies, animations, etc. to watch after if it kind of creeps you out, but definitely watch it and then come on back to watch the rest of this and share your thoughts in the comments below. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. So if you haven't watched Monsterland, I will see you back. If you have, let's carry on. So I was very excited to see this just because I'm a fan of horror. I'm a fan of a good anthology series. I'm a fan of a good horror series that kind of combines monsters with monstrous people. And definitely when you see the promo, it gives you that vibe. Like, it gives you the feeling that yes, you are going to be dealing with various creatures of the dark. But there's also going to be possibly some jacked up individuals as well. And Monsterland did not disappoint. The episodes, so upon first glance, and I also have not read the short story collection, which actually will probably check out because I'm very interested to see kind of how true they stuck to the story, but I hadn't read it. So I didn't have any preconceived notions or ideas going in about what would or wouldn't happen, I just have it based on a trailer. So I will say that I was interested to see if they were going to connect in some way, and I actually really liked how the stories connected. It was a very light touch connection. It was just like this connection where it might have been just, a character would pop up in one or two episodes. It did not have a strong kind of theme throughout where it was truly like they were all the same. But I will say this, you definitely need to watch all 8. I like how they work together in that they kind of built. So like the first couple of episodes where definitely they had a creep factor and they had messed up people, but they were bad, but they got worse. So the people got worse in the things that they did as it went on, and then it kind of jumped back where it wasn't bad. So like the final episode about the couple who was mourning the loss of their daughter, who was missing So, they didn't have confirmation that she had died. She was missing. But, as they say, she had been missing for like 16 months. And so, as they say that if someone is missing and if they're not found, the longer that they're not found, the odds that they're not going to be found alive are higher. And so that final one was kind of maybe potentially the weirdest, just in kind of the approach with the angels or the angelic creatures, and that whole thing with the couple and them. But it was nice to watch them kind of break apart from their grief, but then find this creature and being able to come back together. So that was a nice kind of happy ending to the series. But one of the things I also really liked was how each episode had its own ending, and not all of them were the super tidy, cleaned up, happy ending. Actually, a lot of them were not. A lot of them ended like, dang, that's how we doing it, which I always enjoy an unorthodox ending to a movie. I don't always like it when everything is kind of tied up to a nice little bow. Now, sometimes that's fine, but sometimes it's good to have stories that don't end so neatly, because in the real world, that's just not the case. And, it's always nice to have some imperfections in the stories where it's like they end in kind of a tragic way, or the person does something messed up and then kind of carries on. But it was a really good build from the first episode where, the crazy stuff happened to by the time, and even just the creatures, like the second one, where it was the boy who was fighting the shadow monster, but for all intents and purposes, he kind of looked like he might have been an unhinged young man. And even the way that the people that he connected with online, it definitely was giving me kind of like conspiracy theory community vibes, where you find this, young person who's just having a tough time. They turn to the internet for some reason or another, and then they find this community of other people who are kind of also similarly isolated, but in their isolation they've come together, and then how that can turn into some pretty scary scenarios that we've seen play out in real life lately. So I thought that was interesting how that ended, and that was not a tidy ending. It actually ended pretty sadly. So it's very much a fan of it. I like Nicole Bahari. I think she's a good actress, and so I was interested to see what storyline she would play, and I really liked the whole idea of her level of monstrosity, where she just chose to ignore a horrible thing in return for what she thought was more important, which was, the security of her family, and ultimately ended up being taken out by what looked like were vampires. And I would be interested to see if, some of these stories could come back around. Her character didn't pop back up, but there were some other characters where, like the lady who left her baby in a car, her daughter, because she wasn't a baby, she was like a toddler. She kind of continued to show up in different ways, in different episodes, which I thought was cool. So I definitely liked how they kind of connected the stories in a very loose fashion, but you still needed to watch them all. And so I wanted to kind of talk about them because I'm a fan of the horror of human nature, because as people, people can do some messed up stuff. And so it's always interesting to see how some stories kind of break that down. And the one where the corrupt businessman who made this decision that caused an oil spill, but then ultimately got taken over by the devil, which I thought was very interesting. But I also thought it was odd that the devil ended up being like a crane in his belly, which I thought was interesting, but I liked how that showed up in the next story about mermaids. And I will say, as someone who has watched a lot of mermaid shows, I'm always interested in seeing how the lore plays out. And I thought it was neat how they used the mermaid song to how that looked, because I don't know that I've ever seen a mermaid story where they show you what happens in the mind of the person that the mermaid sings to in order to usually to kill the person or to lure the person to their death in some way. And so it was pretty cool to see how, when the mermaid did her thing and she took over the dude's mind who had essentially kidnapped her, what it looked like. And so that was, so it's just, I like the different approaches to the lore. And so it was just a very interesting series, and it was a nice watch, especially for Halloween. So what did you think about Monsterland? Did you have a favorite episode? I think my favorite episode would probably be, I really liked the last one. I think it kind of gave me some odd warm and fuzzy vibes. But then I also appreciated the mermaid one as well. I just like that different take on, I like that maybe expanded take on the mermaid lore, because we don't always see a deep dive into mermaids. It's usually just, except for with the show Mermaid, which I actually watched, but even then it kind of, the mermaids, it focused on them as a society and as a community that needed to be saved by humans. So it was still kind of like a savior story, versus this one where we got kind of a look into how the mermaid's powers and how they're executed, and then what they can become, which I thought was interesting. So what did you think about Monsterland? Have you watched it yet? I hope if you've gotten this far, you have watched it, because there are a couple of spoilers in what I just discussed, but they're light spoilers. I didn't do too deep of a dive into them, and also you don't know when these episodes are going to show up, so you can still watch it if you've gotten this far and you didn't listen to my warning at the beginning. But if you did watch it, what did you think? What was your favorite episode? Did you find it really scary and creepy, or was it just more kind of interesting and weird, as I found it kind of just interesting and intriguing? So yeah, let's talk about it in the comments. What did you think about Monsterland on Hulu and all of their other lovely Halloween, October spooky month selections? There's a lot of cool stuff on all of the various platforms. So I will definitely be watching more and coming back and sharing more thoughts about some of the different anthologies, movies, and TV shows that I'm going to be checking out this month. And if you have any you want to recommend, share them in the comments below. I love a good horror, sci-fi, fantasy recommendation as well, because there's so much out there that there's some things that I might not have heard about, and maybe you can put me on. So I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments, and I also look forward to the next time that we can talk again. Bye.